Hey, welcome to a bonus episode of the Undiscovered Games video podcast, where we take a look at the lesser-known board games of the world and share those with you. Now, I call this a bonus episode because I originally planned to put this game in one of my two-player games episodes where I feature several two-player exclusive games. But this game did not have any video content, and I just figured, hey, let's make a short little episode for this one because it's a really neat game from the great Reiner Knizia, and it's called Stonehenge. This is from 1994, and I'm going to say right off the bat, don't rush out and buy a physical copy of this until you try it. This is a game you can literally just draw on a piece of paper and try it out a few times, and then if you like it enough, you could seek out a physical copy. I picked my copy up at a thrift store a few years ago, and it was only $2. I just saw this old German board game, and it was $2. I was like, I'll give it a try. I knew nothing about it. I didn't even notice that Knizia's name was on the box when I bought it. I just saw all this German text, and I was like, I'll just Google it when I get home. Luckily, someone had uploaded the English translation of the rules over on Board Game Geek, so I downloaded that, learned the game in about 1 minute, and it's going to take me no time to teach you how to play this game. It's so simple to learn, but it's very addictive. This is purely an abstract game for two players, no luck, no hidden information, and I kind of look at this as a more complex Tac Toe for gamers. It uses numbers to determine if you control a row, and the numbers get added up, so that's why I call this episode Tac Toe. So let's take a deeper look at Stonehenge by the great Reiner Knizia, and I will continue to talk about why I think this is an undiscovered game worth checking out. Before we get started, make sure you are subscribed right here on YouTube at undiscovered_games to learn more about lesser known games just like this. So as we look at the box, we see this very evocative picture of Stonehenge, and I gotta say the box art really is captivating, and the game board itself matches that vibe. It's got like the angled shadow of Stonehenge, along with this mysterious person holding their staff, and I just like how the angle of the shadow sort of parallels this angular grid out here. It's just a very neat looking game board, aesthetically very pleasing, and I'm a very visual person, so this kind of stuff goes a long way with me. Again, I don't know if you need this physical copy of the game, but I really find this production to be quite charming, especially because you get these really nice wooden pieces. So each player takes all their pieces in their player color. You can play as red or black. And in your player color, you're going to find 8 megalith stones, which are these rectangular blocks. And then you have these 9 numbered discs, which are numbered 1 through 6. You have 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, a 4, a 5, and a 6. And the numbers are screen printed on these discs, which is really nice quality. So again, I love that kind of stuff from a production point of view. But let's get into the gameplay. So as we look at the board, you'll see all these gray circles, and they have yellow lines connecting them all. So the yellow lines form rows. For example, this is a row of 3. This is a row of 2. This is a row of 4, and so on. At the end of each row is a green circle, which corresponds to that specific row. So the green circles are where you place your megalith stones, and the gray circles are where you place your numbered discs. The goal of the game is to be the first player to get all your megalith stones placed. So it's a race to place your stones before your opponent. On your turn, you're going to be placing one numbered disc onto an empty gray circle. That's it. As soon as a player places the final disc in a row to fill it up, then you just compare your values. So you tally up your discs versus your opponent's disc in that row, and whichever player has the higher value gets to place their megalith stone at the end of that row. For example, if I had my 2 and my 4 disc and my opponent has their 3, maybe they put their 5 here. That will complete this row. They have a total of 8. I have a total of 6, so they dominate the row. They get to put their stone at the end of that row. And again, you're trying to be the first player to get all your stones placed. Now, if that was all there was to the game, I would say that's a good game design right there. But this is a Reiner Knizia game, and he likes to sneak in that extra layer of depth. So where does that depth come from in Stonehenge? Well, there are 2 rules that I have yet to talk about. First of all, if you're comparing values and they're tied, then whoever placed the final disc in that row loses the tie. So if I have my 1 and my 3 here already, and my opponent comes in and puts their 4 to finish this row, well, our values are tied at 4, but they place the final disc, so they lose this row. However, this disc also counts toward this line, and they completed this line, which they win. So they first place their stone out here, and then when it's my turn, I can place my stone out for this row, which I dominated, again, because I won the tiebreaker. But if you ever dominate a line and it's during an opponent's turn, turn, you have to wait till it's your turn to place the stone out. And that's important because this is a race to get all your stones placed. So in that example, if that was my opponent's final megalith stone, they would have immediately won the game right then and there. I would not have had a chance to put my stone out, even though I dominated this line. So that's one little nuanced rule to keep an eye on. But the one rule that really makes this game shine for me is the fact that you can claim a row before it is complete as long as it's guaranteed to be yours. Let me show you an example. Let's say my opponent has their 1 and their 2 in this row, and then on my turn, I place a 6 here like this. Now this row still has an empty space in it, but I'm beating them by 3. I look at their supply. All they have left is a 2, a 3, and a 1. So in this example, the best they could do is place a 3 and tie me, and they would be the final disc, which means I would win the tiebreaker. So just by placing my 6 here, I immediately get to put my stone at the end of this row because there's no way my opponent can beat me in this row. So remember, this is a race to put out all your stones. So it's a race to dominate these rows quicker than your opponent. And because you're allowed to claim a row before it is completely full, it adds a whole new layer of depth because then it becomes more about efficiently placing your numbers. You want to dominate rows before they get completely full because that means you are winning the race. And that's what makes this game a genius game design. That's where that sneaky Reiner Knizia depth comes from. You have to decide which numbers to use when and where, and you have to pay attention to the numbers that your opponent has remaining because all this information is visible. You keep all your numbered discs face up, and all that stuff really drives your decisions in this game. Suddenly, you're not just looking at a row and trying to get the higher value. You're trying to think ahead a few steps like, okay, my opponent only has a 4, a 6, and a 1 remaining. So when I place my 5 disc, maybe I put it up here and try to bait my opponent into wasting their 6 disc up here because that's the only way they could win this row. But then they spend their 6 and then I come in with another number down here that guarantees me 2 rows in one placement and I get to put 2 stones out on a single turn. So lots of little ways you can try to trap your opponent, ways to think ahead a little bit, but you always have to be adapting your strategy. It's very much a tactical game. There's a lot of little subtle ways to plan ahead, but you also have to think very tactically based on what spots are available on the board as well as what numbers your opponent has remaining. You're also thinking about which rows your numbered disc is affecting. You know, it's going to influence multiple rows. So once again, Reiner Knizia, a master of just using numbers and a very, very simple format to create a surprisingly thinky little filler game. Now again, it's not super deep. Like this is not like the greatest gaming experience ever, but for a little cozy 2-player couch game, my wife and I play this one quite a bit, and we usually do like a best of 3 or a best of 5 because it's so easy to just set back up and try it again. And the rulebook even has some variants on how you can score this over multiple plays, or you can try it with face down discs and things like that, but I'll let you discover that stuff on your own. I like the game how it is. I think it plays really smoothly and it's surprisingly deep for how straightforward it is. And I think you would like this if you like Knizia's game Quandary, which is also called Wildlife Safari or Botswana. I featured that on a previous episode. Or if you like his little micro game called Charte, which is that little 2-player tile placement game, I featured that on a previous episode as well. The biggest difference with Stonehenge is this is purely abstract, meaning all open information. There's no luck here, no hidden information, no surprise moments. It's purely a tactical numbers battle between you and your opponent. Really, the only minor gripe I would have with this is you do have to check every time you place a disc, can my opponent beat me in this row? And later in the game, that gets a little bit fiddly because you always have to check to see if you can claim that row instantly. But that's also my favorite rule in the whole game, so it doesn't really bother me. I'm just saying that does kind of muck up the pace of the game slightly, but just ever so slightly. Another minor problem that some of you might have with this is I find this game difficult to know if I'm doing well or not. You know, as I'm playing the game, I don't really know. Should I put my 3 here? I don't know. I haven't studied it enough. Now, some of you out there might really like to study the patterns and when to place certain numbers where, and because it is purely abstract, you know, you could treat this like chess and really study out the different possibilities. And I think that would be interesting if someone out there did that, but I'm not personally looking to spend that much time analyzing this game from a numbers point of view, and because of that, I don't really know how to get better at the game. I just kind of have to play with my intuition, like, oh, maybe I should put my number here to try to get them to use this number over here, and you know, it's more of like playing on a feeling feeling rather than playing from a mathematical point of view. But it's there for the taking if somebody out there wants to approach it that way. But most of us are just going to be playing this casually, and you might find it difficult to get better at the game unless you really study the numbers. And again, I don't know that you need to rush out and buy a physical copy of this game, because you can just draw this on a piece of paper and try it out. Just get 2 different color pens, draw out this little grid here and make yourself a pool of your numbers, 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s, a 4, a 5, and a 6, and then just take turns writing a number in your color out on the grid. Every time you write a number, cross it off your little pool of numbers there, and I think you'll get a feel for if this is a game you want to seek out in its physical form. I will say, now that I own the game, I'm definitely going to keep it. I think it's cool to watch Stonehenge sort of come to life on the table as the game progresses. You got these nice chunky wooden pieces, and it really adds to the flavor of the game. And that's the kind of stuff I like. I would much rather play this in its physical form than play it on a piece of paper. But again, try it out first and see if the design appeals to you, because these little abstract filler games do not always appeal to me. And I think part of the reason I like this so much is the charm of the production. So that's Stonehenge. I have this rated a 9 out of 10 because it's just a straight up good filler game. Now again, I'm not going to choose this all the time over the variety of games in my collection, but my wife and I do play this quite a bit, just sitting on the couch watching TV. We just set up a game, play best of 3 or best of 5 or whatever, and for $2 I'm keeping this forever. I'm never going to get rid of this game. Even the pieces alone are worth $2. So again, if you find a cheap copy floating around on the secondhand market, you might want to grab it and try it out. But unless you're like a diehard Knizia fan, I don't think you need to prioritize this. But I definitely thought it was worth its own video, because there's no video content that I could find on Stonehenge. So I just wanted to give it the Undiscovered Games treatment, and that's what this channel is all about, is focusing on lesser known, forgotten, older board games and bringing those to the forefront, hopefully putting some new games on your radar to check out. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do click subscribe right here on YouTube at undiscovered_games, and follow me over on Instagram as well, also at undiscovered_games. I post a lot of written reviews and cool pictures and unboxing reels and things like that. So say hi to me on Instagram, and if you want to support the channel more, there is a digital tip jar in the description below. It's just a PayPal link. I do not expect that whatsoever, but that is one way to help keep the channel alive and motivate me to produce content on a regular basis. The best way to help the channel is to make sure you're subscribed, make sure all your board gaming friends are subscribed right here on YouTube, and as long as my subscribers go up, I will continue to release videos. So thanks for joining me on this little bonus episode of the Undiscovered Games video podcast. Until next time, I am your undiscovered host saying thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.